Kia ora everyone, my name is Hannah Devry. I am an RTLB in the Cluster 18 in Tauranga Moana, and I have been a teacher for over 10 years now, and I have a Masters of Psychology, and an undergrad and a postgrad diploma in primary teaching. And I worked in the UK for 3 years at an online high school, and so assistive technology and technology in general is a bit of a passion of mine, and so I thought I would use this as my mihi whaka hirihira. So yeah, I've decided to, there was a bit of a gap in our cluster for assistive technology. I've had quite a few people come and ask me about assistive technology applications because I've completed a few now, and I've been on a course through the ministry to help to understand a bit more about assistive technology. So I thought it would be useful to create a how-to guide, and I'm going to be offering some training to the other RTLB in my cluster at the end of this term as well. But I thought I would record this and share it as part of my study. So basically, this PowerPoint describes what assistive technology is, who can apply for assistive technology, what the different types of assistive tech are, how to assess what assistive technology you should trial, steps of the process, things that you need to know, and then what does a good application look like, a checklist, and then key information. I thought I'd start with a quote. For most people, technology makes things easier. For a person with a disability, it can make things possible. And I think this is really true in regards to assistive technology. I've seen how it can impact students in a profound way. A little boy I work with currently has just been given assistive technology, and he went from barely being able to access the curriculum to literally he can write most of his letters now by practicing on an iPad every single day, and he'd written about 6 sentences through an app called Clicker Writer, which is huge for him. So yeah, I've seen how it really can make learning possible for these students. So what is assistive technology? It is specialised equipment that students with additional learning needs use in class to increase or improve their ability to participate and learn. So an example of this could be a C-pen, which helps a student with reading. So it's just a pen, it's about this big, and it's got a little light on the end of it, and you put the pen over the piece of paper and you move it along slowly and it reads to you. You can plug headphones into the end of it, and yeah, it's really useful, and I've seen it help a few students. Older students probably more than younger, because you have to be quite precise with where you place it and have a specific speed with it, but it's a really useful piece of assistive technology. So which one of these are assistive technology? It's a bit of a trick question, because they all can be assistive technology. Just because something doesn't necessarily look like technology, it doesn't mean that it isn't. A chair that moves up and down is assistive, and it's made with technology. Who can apply for assistive technology? So there's 2 groupings you can come under for applying for assistive technology. You can either already be accessing supports through the Ministry of Education, and this is ongoing support, so not RTLB. So OARS funding, speech language, behaviour support, blends, the list is there. So yeah, if you're at that next level already, where you're already accessing quite a lot of support, you can automatically apply for assistive technology. However, if you're not involved in any of them, which a lot of our students won't be, the other option is that you have an IEP in place, or an individual plan. Our RTLB CAP plans work as those. That covers that one off. Students need to be at least 1 level below their curriculum. They need to have ongoing support by a school leader, so that could be the SENCO, Learning Support Coordinator. So they need to just have ongoing monitoring by them. And they need to have additional adult support in the class, and this is for a minimum of either 2 hours one-to-one time with an adult in the class, or 4 hours of small group time. So this can include the teacher, say, pulling aside the child for 15 minutes during SSR every day of the week, and that makes up that hour of individual time, and then maybe they have a TA for half an hour 2 days a week, and that makes up the other hour. Or sometimes you can mix and match with the small group and the individual, so maybe they're having 20 minutes a day with their teacher, small group reading time, and maybe they're having a few hours a week where they go out with a teacher aide for extra support. So it can be made up in different ways, but you need to have covered those bases, so either 2 hours individual or 4 hours small group extra on top support for their learning. And then just to note, and then that also has to have been in place for 3 months, so it's good. So we can provide sometimes teacher aid support, especially if it's to help them with the assistive technology, so to help them to implement the assistive technology and to help them with the trial. So it could be good in our CAP to apply for that funding and to get that set up as quick as possible, because they have to have had the teacher aid in place for 3 months before you make the application, which by the time you've kind of started your RTLB support anyway, and then you've done the trial and you've written up the trial, it can take that long. So, and hopefully, usually these children will have been having support before we get there anyway. So yeah, usually that doesn't matter so much, but just good to note. And then assistive technology is available only for individual students, so one at a time. And yeah, so you don't need a formal diagnosis unless you're applying for very specific hearing equipment, and then they have to be diagnosed with that specific hearing deficit or need before they can have that equipment. But if it's Chromebooks, iPads, that kind of thing, it's they don't need a specific diagnosis and anything. It all is covered in the form. So how to assess students' needs for assistive technology. There's something called the SET framework by Joy Zabala, and it's just a way to sit down and think about the child before you start the trial. And so it stands for student, so you need to describe their learning abilities, any of their needs, their environment, so describing their learning environment, any existing support, any technology they're already using, and then the tasks, so develop learning targets and describe what it is the student needs to do to achieve the goal. So yeah, anything that they're struggling with and that they need help with and that they might need to help them support what you're going to do. And then the tools are, what are the different tools that might fit to help support these goals that we're setting. So let's work through a SET example. So this student is 9 years old, they're adventurous, interested in technology, and they have strong oral language. Their environment is an urban primary school, and the school has PC computers and iPads, and they're the only devices they have. And the task, so they're reading at they're being able to decode at their correct age level, but their writing is they're really struggling with, and specifically their spelling and their handwriting. So these are some of the tools that we could use, that we could think about that might help support them. So a Windows laptop, could that support them? That's already in the classroom. A Chromebook, could that support them? iPads, a Windows tablet, Android tablet, MacBook, or something else. And so these are the different tools that we could think about to start thinking, what ways could they support the student? So what are the features of the tool that we want to use? Does it need to be touchscreen for a student, for instance, if they're going to be practicing handwriting? Does it need to be robust because it's in a school? Does it need to have speech to text or word prediction? So when they're typing, it will predict the word and read it to them. So Read and Write and Clicker Writer both do word prediction. Clicker Writer is probably more useful for the very, very low end, and Read and Write for those students that already kind of know how to work a keyboard or are a bit more maybe independent. Is it portable? What are the physical features? We don't want it too heavy. Will it support the things they need? So for this specific student, is it going to support their spelling needs, their ability to practice their handwriting? And so in question 7 in the application form, it asks, what does the equipment need to do to support the student's learning goals? So that's where the the T part of the set comes in, so key features of the tool. So it needs to have a keyboard for reducing the need for handwriting for the student. Need to be able to talk into it and have speech turned into text. Need to have, can it read back the typed and dictated text so that the student can check the accuracy, because remember, this student's got good oral language. And then it means that she's not having to decode and read those words on the page. When typing, does it provide the relevant text predictions that she can hear before including in her writing? So, as I said before, read and write it predicts the word that you're about to type, and then it reads it to you, so you can check if it's the right word you want to use. Does it have a camera so that you can include photos and videos from the environment? Does it enable you to practice her handwriting? Is it robust enough for a year 3 to 5 classroom? Does it have good battery life? And is it easy for the student to get in and out and put away independently? Because that's a big thing, is if they're not independent, the whole point of this is that it's making them independent. So if it's too complicated for them, it's not going to help with their independence. This is quite a cool idea as well, which is to put down the devices, and then these are the different features along the top that we might need for this student. So it needed to have a keyboard so they don't have to write. It needs to be able to have dictation, text-to-speech, word prediction, a front-facing camera, handwriting. Needs to be robust, have a good battery life, and be easy to use. And then you can tick what each one has. So the Surface Pro, for instance, has basically everything, apart from it's not very easy to use. And no one else in the school uses it, so there's no way of really training the student up in this. And so just because it's not very easy to use and it's not creating independence, that would be a main reason to say, no, we don't want that one, even though it has all the other features. The iPad, though, for example, only has the fact that it's not robust and it doesn't have a keyboard. So we can fix those things. We can get a Bluetooth keyboard and we can put a nice thick case on it to make it more robust. So because they're easy things to fix and it has everything else, that was the one that they decided to actually go with. So based on these characteristics, list the technology and or software chosen to trial an iPad, and then what other options were considered and why were they not suitable. So you need to include this. And list a maximum of 5 options with short notes. So they considered a laptop, but it lacks a front-facing camera, and it's not easy for Peyton to use. As I already said, the Surface Pro. Looked at a Chromebook, but it lacks the front-facing camera. Touchscreen model is really expensive as well. So although it does have the touchscreen, it's a lot more expensive. And Chromebooks weren't used in the school, so the teachers can't help the student with it as much. And then they looked at an Android tablet, but they don't have as many educational apps. And again, they're using iPads in the school, not tablets. That's another thing to note, is that if a school has Chromebooks and iPads, they have devices that you might want the student to trial. If it's not one-to-one or they're a bit older, it's worth trialing it from the ministry. If a school has one-to-one devices, you cannot apply for the device itself. So if the student already has one-to-one device at school, unless it's not fit for purpose, so say they all had Chromebooks at school and they were way too complicated for this student to use, then you could trial an iPad for them. But if you just wanted them to use read and write, because they just needed all the speech to text, etc., then they would just stick with that Chromebook from their school and you would just be trialing the software rather than the hardware. So that's important to think about as well. What do they already have access to? And we'll come across that in that application later as well. So, does this iPad have everything they need? Well, currently, if we're just getting an iPad, no. It doesn't have a keyboard at the moment. It doesn't have text prediction. Can't practice their handwriting as it is. It's not very robust. And we need to be able to organise it in something.